Black women across the country of the United States are reclaiming their time, their rest, and their power on our own terms. And here, we're doing it God's way. Welcome to Sisters Unbothered, the place where we reject the grind, unlearn the struggle, and embrace the kind of peace that can't be shaken. I'm Coach Nikki Cates, and every week we're having real, unfiltered conversations about rest as resistance, ease as strategy, and why soft power is not just a luxury, it's our birthright. Because in a world that expects us to carry everything, choosing rest is revolutionary. So take a deep breath, sis. You don't have to earn this. Now, let's get to it. Welcome back. It is not my gift to sing, but I wanted to express to you what was in my head. And literally, I'm hearing welcome back, Cotter, or Mace, and saying, welcome back, my sisters. If you are familiar with me already, then you already know that I did a season under the name Strategic Transformations with Coach Nikki last year. And it started right after International Women's Day and ended right after this election season. And if you remember correctly, I was pretty depressed. After a hope, such a great hope that we will finally have a woman in charge. Because ladies, we both know that women do things on a whole nother level. We do leadership on a whole nother level. And maybe that is why we are intended to keep from truly showcasing that, especially in this country. Because apparently the men of this country have some esteem issues. Could you imagine? Not to say that the world would have been perfect, the country would have excelled to new levels and heights. I'm not even going to hype like that. All I'm saying is a woman in charge would have definitely been the mother nurturing the people that we needed in this time in this country. I don't think I need to remind y'all what we got instead. So I want to say welcome 92%. I don't know if that's only who's going to be listening to this. We may have some allies, we may have some accomplices that genuinely and truly have stood with us. You all are definitely outnumbered because based off those numbers, we was out there by ourselves on that branch. But nevertheless, welcome, my sister. Hopefully you're here with the intention of helping yourself, but also your fellow sisters to create a greater impact during this time and season of rest that we've collectively decided to enter. So that is why I'm focusing all of my content this year, 2025, on my sisters. So welcome to Sisters Unbothered. And if we like that title and we like this concept, we're going to keep it going. I think Strategic Transformations was very broad and generalized. I love that now it's definitely more specific to who I truly would like to speak to, who I'm called to speak to, and who tends to speak into me, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Anyway, so welcome back. I won't sing again. Your ears will be so happy for it. All right, so I don't know if I really need to reintroduce myself. I will put a link to a video where I go through a thorough reintroduction of who I am to people that don't know. But just real quick, I am an internationally certified life coach. I raised 4 amazing Black women in this world. I helped my sisters, Black women, to show up in this world as themselves. That is something that I was determined to instill in my siblings and my children at a very young age because I was conditioned to show up for everyone but myself. And so the intention now is to ensure that I encourage you to show up the way God intended. And that doesn't mean that we are to show up arrogant and selfish. That all doesn't mean also that we need to show up selfless in a way where we are allowing everyone and everything to drain us, which is where we have been as a collective. And we made a collective decision when they threw our big sister general out for the trash that we were no longer going to be the mules of society. So that is what we're going to do here. That is my passion. That is my calling. I am called to be a part of the resistance and the revolution through communication. Now, if God would allow me to be more frontline, more activist, I am ready for it. But I also know that He has gifted me with the gift of communication and the gift of teaching. So that is what this podcast will be about. For too long, we've been conditioned to believe that struggle is our birthright. Why? Because we come from the ancestry of struggle. My family, originally on my maternal side, hailed originally from those slave ships that came into South Carolina. My blood is straight from West Africa. My family's roots come from the borders of North and South Carolina. And my family was born and raised in Pageland, South Carolina, right near the border of Monroe, North Carolina, not far from Charlotte, about an hour, hour and a half from the Charlotte area. That is where we come from. And struggle and learning how to survive has been our birthright. But how many of y'all know that just because we come from the ancestry of struggle and trauma, we don't have to stay there. We don't have to reproduce that in our daughters and our sisters and our cousins. We don't. Okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about. I remember having a conversation with one of my closest friends. Maybe it was a couple years ago. And she was saying to me that it pisses her off that you're not Black enough if you don't struggle. Everyone is not from the projects. Everyone's not from the hood. Everyone has not been on food stamps or welfare. Everyone does not have family members that are incarcerated. Everyone's family members are not part of the gang culture or crime life. That's like assuming every Italian you come across is a part of the mafia. It's wrong. Okay. And we want to come out of this mindset that we need to accept where we come from. Okay. We come from trauma. We come from oppression. Okay. We come from struggle, but we don't have to accept that as our identity. Okay. And so that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about this reality that, yeah, we have to grind. It's a part of life. But we don't have to grind ourselves into the ground to be seen, heard, or taken seriously. And I think that's something that as Black women, we have been conditioned to understand that we have to be 3 or 4 times better. Not only do we have to be better than Black men, we have to be better than white men, white women, Latina women, Asian, quote unquote the model minorities. That is the plight of being a Black woman. And I will say this again. I said it before in I believe my last episode last season. Y'all, Kimberly Crenshaw was absolutely correct in creating this concept of intersectionality. If you look at the dichotomies that exist between the run of Barack Obama, whom I still love, Hillary Clinton, and Big Sister General, Kamala Harris. Totally different situations. She was treated worse than Hillary, who was also treated terrible for being a woman. She was treated worse than Barack Obama because even though he was Black, he was still a man. Black women receive a different level of oppression. And because of this, we have conditioned ourselves to sacrifice ourselves for the betterment of others. And we don't have to do that anymore, my sister. We do not. What if we rejected that? What if we rejected it? What if we moved in a different kind of power? One that isn't about exhaustion and depletion, but about alignment. That's what this space is about. When we say we're doing it God's way, we're going to learn how to do it in a way where when we're in alignment, it's about being more than doing. No more working ourselves to complete exhaustion, for the whims of other people's concepts, obligations, expectations. If we're going to be exhausted, sis, let's be exhausted because we're in alignment with what God called us to, and we're doing what He put us here to do, the way that He intended, not the way the world intended. Because when we show up the way that He intended, and we walk in this world the way He intended when He gave us life, we will have full provision, full protection, and perfect peace. Okay? So that's what I want us to take away from every single episode, every single live, every single thing that I write. I want us to take away that it's no longer about exhaustion and depletion, but it's about alignment. It's about the focusing on being who you are as opposed to doing what you're expected to do. Okay? All right, y'all. I feel like I'm preaching already. We're only 10 minutes in. Okay. Let me refocus my thoughts here and let's shift into why this conversation takes on a whole nother importance in 2025. The current state of Black women and the Black community in America is uncertain, racially fatiguing, and something like us deciding collectively to step back is being seen as a radical act. I wanted to pause there for a thought because, sis, that shows us exactly how the world has seen us. But we're coming from women that not only had to stand on the front lines and fight, not only had to be domestic in their homes, wives to their husbands and mothers to their children and daughters to their mothers and fathers, siblings to their siblings. Not only did they have to do that, not only did they have to stand at the front lines and fight for the collective good of all, they also had to do it for everyone else. How many of us know Black women in our past that have had to not only take care of their own families, but go and take care of a family of paler skin? That might be a few generations back, depending on how old you are. But I remember my grandmother doing it in her older years. My mom has had to do it. That's where we come from, sis. So right now, culturally, politically, and spiritually, we are in a space where we are having to actively choose rest, ease, and self-preservation over being the mules of society. And some of us, it's so ingrained in us that we don't feel like we're being effective unless we do it. But can I say something to you, my sister? You are more than what you do. I'll say it again. You are more than what you do. It is not who you are. If you go back and listen to last season, I've talked about this. It's something that I learned sitting in front of groups of women, conducting women's transformation circles. It is very difficult for a woman of any culture or race to separate her identity from what she does. If I ask a woman, who are you? Tell me about yourself. 9.5, 9.8 times out of 10, I'm going to say 9.9. Her response is going to be what she does. Her job. Is she a mother? Is she married? Is she a part of a particular cultural unit? Is she a Christian? Is she an active believer? We identify by what we do. Sad but true. I would go out on a limb and say that most humans do. But what I'm here to say to you, my sisters, we don't have to flow like that anymore. We tend to be the trend starters. So let's normalize no longer being what we do, but focusing on who we are. And not just who we figure out that we are through self-discovery, but who we are based off who God says that we are. Because all of us were made uniquely for a purpose. And I know that in modern times, a lot of people have tried to veer away from this concept of purpose because people find it so difficult to find their purpose. But can I tell you a secret, my sister? Your purpose was a seed that was planting inside of you, and it has been growing. And it's so amazing that I say this because two of my closest friends said something to me within maybe a week apart. One of my closest friends said to me when I was telling her here for the month of March how I was getting crawling out from under my proverbial rock to get back into the game, to start recording again, start writing more consistently again, start putting myself out there as a part of this movement, this resistance, this revolution that we're on the verge of. Her response to me was, "We need your voice. I'm so glad you're back. We need your voice." And then my best friend said to me this morning, "Sis, God has been preparing you for this time, and I can see it so clearly now. He's been preparing you for this." And what she was talking about is this season of resistance and revolution. He's been preparing me for this. This is the time that I had been preparing for. So my fears are no longer warranted because I am needed. And I'm saying that to you now, sister. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of threat of snatching back our way of life. We have been so comfortable and complacent in the crumbs that we've been given. And secretly, our community has still been dying, starving of malnutrition, because we're still given crumbs. There's still systemic racism. There's still oppression. It is time for us, sis, to see it for what it is and figure out how our moves should be. Not based off what someone else says. Because how many of these videos are out there of our Caucasian brothers and sisters and our Latino and Latina brothers and sisters calling for us to get back out here? Why? Because we've been the ones that they've been following. We've been the ones that they've been hiding behind. Nothing makes me happier on TikTok than to see a Black man call out these people and tell them to leave their sisters alone because they deserve every bit of rest that they are planning on taking. I love it. So I think this is something that we should become more intentional about, because a lot of us are saying that we are here for rest and we are stepping back. And as the 92%, we're not getting involved right now. This ain't our fight. And not that I don't agree with that, but I think that we need to utilize this time for preparation, because eventually we will have to. One of the books that I've been working from in this season is from Tricia Hersey, called Rest is Resistance. And the quote says, "Rest disrupts and pushes back against white supremacy and capitalism. It is a form of resistance because it says, my body is not a machine. I am worthy of care." And let's keep it real, sis. We've been operating like machines. The strength and the fortitude that we've had on top of being women in this world is unprecedented for anyone else but us. Because women can say, well, I have to do all of that too. Okay, you do. But do you also have to stand for your Black men? Because systemic racism and marginalization and oppression, we are the brunts of that. We are ground zero in this country. Not to discredit our Native sisters, but the fight is a totally different fight, y'all. We don't have to be machines for capitalism anymore. We don't have to be complacent and obedient to the expectations of white supremacy. You have a choice, sis. You have a choice. It may not feel like it all the time, but you do. And you are worthy. You are worthy of care, okay? Because this podcast and everything that I've been doing moving forward is about taking cultural thought and bridging it with biblical truth, because I am at my heart a Jesus's girl. And this is what I would say to you. Scripture reads in the Holy Bible, Matthew 11:28-30. "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened. I will give you rest." What does that say to you, sis? That goes back to alignment, does it not? All of us are weary and burdened. In 2025, it feels like it's consistent. Maybe we're even starting to be conditioned and used to it, because something just keeps on happening. Something keeps being said. Something's being stripped away. Something's being tugged and pulled on. And all the while, it's to keep us in fear that they're snatching away those Bill of Rights that were given us access through the 14th Amendment. The battles that our ancestors made, endured, and won on our behalf. Big Sister General said it best. We didn't just fall out of a coconut tree. We stand on the shoulders of those before us. And as Black women in this country, we can learn from other Black women in so many ways. So that's what we're going to talk about in this podcast, okay? Tying it all together, sis. This is bigger than just self-care, okay? This is bigger than pedicures and manicures and shopping sprees and red wine and jazz. Listen, this is bigger than the concept that we've been given of what self-care is, okay? We're talking not just about a physical rest. We're talking about mental and emotional rest. We're talking about preparation. We're talking about realignment. We're talking about recalibration. We're talking about healing ourselves. Bell Hooks talks about this, and Sisters of the Yam and some of her other literature. She talks about the need for Black women, especially those, I'm going to say all of us, because all of us are scholars and activists, and we know what we know, and we fight for what we believe we need to fight in on our own levels, not just those that are in the limelight. All of us have a little Angela Davis in us, right? If you're married, you have a little Coretta Scott King in you. If you are a master organizer of people and getting people to rally, listen, I used to try to plan family reunions. That is organizing at its best, sis. Black folks can be so difficult. Y'all want a whole family reunion with t-shirts and a cookout and multiple days and all this freaking food that we don't need, but nobody wants to make the payments. No one wants to pay. No one wants to put the money up. No one wants to be a part of the planning committee. No one wants to clean up when it's over. No one wants to offer their house, and if they do, they want to cut. Black folks, we can be so difficult. It requires so much. If you're the one that does all the planning for the family, sis, you can be an organizer. You can be Diane Nash, Marion Richardson, our beautiful sisters that organize the grassroots of the Black Lives Matter movement. God has been preparing you for something. This is our opportunity while we're resting to tune into, realign, and recalibrate for what that is, okay? Okay, so I have created a Substack specifically for Sisters Unbothered. My intention with that is for us to have a place where we can create community. I release my blogs and articles on there. I'm going to be adding the books that I've already written on there. Those will only be available for free to those that subscribe, the monthly or the lifetime member, whichever. Okay. I'm going to have a lot of content from my past to now, as well as offerings. I'm going to start doing transformation circles through there at some point for paid members, where you will receive coaching services, group coaching, obviously a discount on individual coaching if necessary. But under the free subscription, you will have access to my articles, my blog posts, the recaps of these podcasts. I want you all to have somewhere where you can go to have these conversations, because not all of us have people in our lives that we can have these conversations with. And that was the intention of the Women's Transformation Circles to begin with, okay? So what I want us to focus on is why we feel like, why we've been conditioned to hustle for our worth. There's an article on there I just wrote and put up called Releasing Control. And I talk about how we are also conditioned to self-idolatry, right? What does that mean? The Bible talks about in 1 John 2 and 16, as well as all the way at the beginning in Genesis with Eve, the three lusts of life. And hustle culture feeds into this self-idolatry of the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. If you want to learn more about that, I'll probably be doing episodes specific to those aspects, but you can also go on the Substack, Sisters Unbothered, with Coach Nikki, and read this article and read about the 3 lusts of life and how it shows up in real time in our. You may be a Christian and you may not even recognize that these things are showing up in your everyday life. I went through 2024 hustling like nobody's business. Every day I'm hustling was a real thing. By the end of the year, I could not believe how much I had accomplished. I accomplished so much through my own energy and strength and ability, and did not see the return on investment. And it was nothing more depressing than that. I was so focused on doing. And I didn't realize that I was doing it for my own self-gratification, to receive the validation that I thought I needed. That I was doing it because I felt like I needed. I. Even though I thought I was doing it because that's what God told me to do. Maybe you can relate. In that same article, we also talk about the acronym of REST, R-E-S-T, as a framework to release to God, to embrace, to sit with Him, and to trust. When we do these things, it allows us to align and be, as opposed to constantly on the treadmill that never ends and never stops of doing. The quote from this blog would be, "The world tells us that rest is earned, that we have to prove ourselves before we are worthy of slowing down. But God has already said, 'Be still and know that I am God.'" That's in Psalms 4, 6, and 10. Rest is not something we have to fight for. It is something we have to surrender to. And in this time of us claiming a season of rest, sis, we have to surrender to the concept of truly resting, not just removing ourselves from the fight, but truly resting, realigning, recalibrating, and being strengthened, because we will eventually have to get back in the fight. We will have to get back in the ring. We will have to get back in the streets. We will have to get back to the front lines eventually. So I ask you, what would it look like for you to release control and trust that God's pace is better than yours? I only teach what I know, my sisters. I told you about how I went so hard last year. By November, once the election happened and I went into a deep depression, I couldn't bring myself out of it. And I knew God was stripping away areas in my life and within myself. And you know what happened? When I started regaining my energy and my will to engage in January, He began to show me and speak to my heart that it was time to be Nikki, the Nikki that He has been growing and developing in me, with full intention and expectation for His will. Not the Nikki that I thought I wanted to be or needed to be, doing a whole bunch of stuff that's expected. And can I tell you, sis, it has been the most freeing experience to be in this space of allowing myself to just be. I used to get up 4:30 in the morning and go sit at Starbucks and write for hours before coming home to log on for work for my 9 to 5. Plus, in the midst of that, I was doing schoolwork, finishing my degree, which I just finished last week. I am now finally a holder of an undergraduate degree from Syracuse University. I don't have the physical degree yet, but you know what I mean, sis. So I'm working. I'm doing school full time. I'm creating content. I'm hosting events. I'm networking. I'm meeting with my team. I'm paying for my team out of my pocket because I'm not generating enough income. I'm having coaching clients. I'm hosting meetups. I'm attending church services, plus trying to fit in self-care and personal development. Sis, whenever could I have truly heard what God was trying to say to me in the midst of doing so much? I had fooled myself. Now, I tried at first to get up at 4:30 and go about life like I was last year. I can't do it. My body will not let me do it. I woke up 5 o'clock this morning with full intention to take this day to do some recording, to work on some writing, to do some more research. And by 7 o'clock, I had fell back asleep right here in this chair that I'm sitting in. He's breaking me from the grind and the hustle. And I'm hoping that he'll do the same for you. But we have to be surrendered to this season of rest that we've decided to take, and we have to be intentional about it, sis. Okay? All right, it's time for me to wrap up. This has been going way too long. All right, what to expect from Sisters Unbothered? Potential upcoming conversations would be the myth of the strong Black woman, why strength isn't the same as struggle. Whew, I feel like I want to preach that one. Faith over force, how to trust divine timing instead of hustle culture. Soft power and influence. I know some of y'all may be familiar that soft power is a political term, okay? But I believe that we use or could use soft power and diplomacy in our lives more so than what we've been doing. Leadership does not have to lead to burnout, okay? Doesn't have to stress us out, but we have to choose. We have to be intentional about changing that. Shay Bynes wrote in her book, Grace Over Grind, God's grace will take you further than your grind ever could. And I can say in this season of my life that I'm starting to see that to be very true. One of my favorite scriptures, Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6, says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Sis, you ain't got to keep being out there trying to cut down with a machete the branches and the trees that are blocking the path and clearing the way. He will do that for you. He will put people in your life to do that for you. He will give you the smarter and wiser way to work instead of the hard labor, if you trust him. Okay? This is the space where we're going to unlearn struggle, my sister, and I'm going to be unlearning with you, okay? And we're going to embrace this season of rest. And we're going to redefine our power and our purpose. And we're going to do it collectively, like we decided we were going to do. Okay? All right. Well, that's it for me, girl. Please join the Substack, free or paid, whatever you prefer. I will be going live on Saturdays on TikTok and Substack around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's going to be different, I will let you all know. When this podcast drops, I will have went live, or I will be getting ready to go live within the next hour. So please come over and join me. You can find me on TikTok at I am Nikki Cates, I believe, or is it Coach Nikki Cates? It's one of those, y'all. I'm not going to look it up right now. But you can definitely find me on Substack at substack.com/the Coach Nikki Cates. If you use that link, it'll give you access to any of my publications on Substack. I am also on Medium as a writer as well. You'll be able to find that information as well. Actually, to make it easier for y'all moving forward, I believe I'm going to just go ahead and create a link tree and put that link in the show notes for future reference, okay? One thing I want you to remember as we close out this episode, Black women deserve rest, they deserve power, and they deserve purpose. Not only do you deserve it because God said so, but it's yours anyway, whether you believe it or not. But it can be done without burnout, without depression, without anxiety, without turmoil and conflict in your heart and in your mind, okay? I love you, my sister, and I will talk to you soon. All right, sis, that's a wrap on this episode of Sisters Unbothered. If today's conversation reminded you that you don't have to hustle for your worth, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And don't keep this to yourself. Send it to a sister who needs to hear this, girl. Let's keep this energy going. Follow me on TikTok or Fanbase at I am Nikki Cates. Also, on Substack, you can find Sisters Unbothered with Coach Nikki. And on YouTube at Nikki Cates, Sisters Unbothered, or I am Nikki Cates, for more on rest, faith, and living unbothered as Black women in America. Because choosing rest is choosing freedom, and Black women, we deserve both. Talk to you soon.